I'm not even gonna fucking do the intro. Voice messages. This is a relatively new feature, hasn't been around for too long, but it's really fucking effective if you do it right, okay? So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to use it, how to sort of transition, when to use it, and how to actually make good voice recordings where you don't sound like a fuckwit and dry up vaginas, okay? So let's dive in. The first thing to mention with voice messages is I don't usually do them straight away, okay? So I don't just, open, well, I mean, the girl has to open you, but let's say she opens with like, hey, I don't usually just go straight into a voice message, okay? The reason for this is because you want to make sure that she's decently invested in the conversation before you go ahead and send a voice memo, okay? Because otherwise, chances are she might just not respond. She might, and also it's like a lot of investment, considering a lot of girls that are going to open you on Bumble aren't going to really invest that much. So yeah, don't start off with a voice message straight away. You want to transition once you know a girl is like properly into it. So I'll give you an example. So this is just a random conversation on Bumble. What's one thing you could find out about me that would make you excited to go on a date? So it starts with like one of the fucking mystery question things. And then she put, you have luscious long hair and a great taste in wine. And then I was like, you were open-minded and adventurous, right? And then from that, she qualifies off of my answer. She's like, well, I bungee jumped, walked around the perimeter of the highest building in the southern hemisphere, and whitewater rafted. All of which I'd never do again. Adventurous enough? So yeah, she's qualifying, and when I say qualifying, I mean she's explaining how she fits my criteria, being open-minded and adventurous. So whenever a girl qualifies to you like that, it's a very good sign that they're quite interested in you, they're quite invested, so on and so forth. So for me, that was kind of like a green light to push it further. So you want to always look for that before you start sending voice memos. I mean, you could just go straight in, but you won't have as high of a success rate. And I don't do voice memos with like every single girl on Bumble, okay? I always like to see where they're at in terms of investment first for the most consistent results overall, right? So, voice memo.
Pretty impressive. That's a certain type of adventurous. Are you adventurous enough to send me a voice message and introduce yourself?
So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just rewarding her for qualifying, right? Rewarding good behavior. And then at the end, I'm kind of challenging her to send a voice message back, okay? And that's what I always do when I first start sending voice memos, is the first one, I always challenge them to send a voice memo back. Because you don't want to be the only one sending voice memos and they're just fucking texting, right? You always want investment to be equal within your conversations. Now, another thing to mention, with the voice memos, it doesn't have to be really long, right? They can just be short, to the point. What matters more within your voice memos is the tonality and the energy behind, what you're sending. So in terms of tonality, you never want to fucking send a voice memo where it's like, oh, hey, so nice to meet you. Like, oh, really? That's so interesting. It's like, that is like the most pussy drying fucking tonality there ever is, right? It's like the very supplicating, people pleasing kind of tonality, right? Where the tonality goes up, right? With tonality, it's like, you want to think of it as almost like a pattern, right? It's like we either speak, you could be like, hey, so nice to meet you. Oh, really? That's so interesting. See how it always goes up at the end of fucking each sentence, right? So that's people pleasing. Now, someone who talks with authority, or someone who's, let's say, your boss or something like that, it's like, and they're trying to teach you something, or teachers, for example, they generally talk in a downward inflection. So they'd be like, hey, can you get me that? Starts off, a bit lower, but it starts off slightly higher than how it ends, right? Because it starts up there and then it goes down, right? So with, flirting, which is essentially what you want to fucking do, right? Like, no shit, it's pretty simple. You want to have a downward inflection because that conveys authority, right? Dominance, leadership, so on and so forth. But you still want it to be somewhat sexual, somewhat playful, so on and so forth, right? That's what the flirting sort of tonality is all about. So it's like, yeah, you want to get into a habit of having a downward inflection, but it being, a bit softer, right? Being like, oh, really? Oh, you're such a white girl. Oh, okay. That kind of shit. Often we're not even fucking taught this, right? Like how to fucking flirt, but it's very simple when you look at it in practical terms. It's literally just downward inflection, speaking from your diaphragm. That's another thing. A lot of people, they just project their voice from like here, right? Just like straight up. They're not, they don't use their diaphragm at all. And I might do a separate video on that one. But vocal projection is a whole nother thing. You want to, speak from your diaphragm, right? Not just like up here, okay? You want to take a deep breath. You want to like let your energy flow down a bit. And just kind of relax. Deep but soft, playful, downward inflection. That's pretty much all you need to know, right? Cool. So then she's like, ha ha ha, oh my god, you're one of those people. I have a cold at the moment. I sound really unattractive, lol. A lot of girls will say shit like this. Girls get a little insecure about what their voices and like what they sound like, I've found out. But I just like to playfully tease them. Like I usually go with this kind of line. It's like, it's okay. I'll just assume you sound like Gollum from Lord of the Rings then. That one goes down well. So then she's like, ha ha ha, can you preview a voice memo before you hit send? I'm feeling ballsy, right? It's important to, it's good to tease them in these circumstances, right? If they say some shit like, oh, I don't want to, it's like they're not complying, right? They're not falling in line with your request, right? So you want to punish bad behavior, right? So, punishing bad behavior, it's not like saying something mean or being like fucking insulting, right? Punish is probably a bad word, right? And it comes from fucking Pavlov's conditioning and shit. But like teasing does the job, right? You're just kind of like subtly, negatively framing her, but in a playful way, just kind of teasing, just like I'll assume you sound like Gollum, right? So because I'm not just accepting the fact that she's like not complying, it makes her want to comply, right? If I was just like, oh no, that's okay, so tell me more about X, Y, and Z, well, that'd be shit. It'd be like I was rewarding bad behavior, okay? So you want to keep that in mind. So she sends that, and then I'm like, yes, you choose whether you press send, right? Because I just wanted to send one. And then she sends one. I can't show you what she sent because, privacy reasons. She pretty much just qualifies herself again. She's like, I am adventurous enough to send a voice memo, like, tell me whether I sound like Gollum or not, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, pretty positive response. And then this is my next one. I'm just like,
you conquered your fears. How inspiring. You don't sound like Gollum. You do sound very fucking Kiwi, though. I'm half Kiwi, too, actually, on my dad's side. He was from fucking Invercargill. I don't have the accent, though.
So yeah, I'm just kind of like subtly teasing her at the start, which is good, right? It's just, flirting is mostly that, just like sort of playfully just teasing her, right? Just throwing these like slightly negative kind of frames. It's just like, oh, you conquered your fears, right? It's continuing on with this kind of frame of like, oh, she's kind of nervous and I'm the more like confident one, which is a good frame to have. And then I find out like she's Kiwi from her voice memo. So I'm just like bringing out a commonality there, which is always a good thing to do. And you can see like what I mean with like the pattern in the tonality. Like it kind of goes up in some parts, but then it always ends up going down, right? It's not like it keeps going up, right? It's like it always ends on a down, right? And it's kind of like playful, deep, but kind of sexual as well, right? You don't even need to say things sexual to have like a sexual kind of vibe with your voice memos and stuff. So she's like, ha ha ha, you sound really fucking Aussie. Oh my god, everyone I meet here is from that area, which is weird because it's tiny. And then I'm like, makes sense. Anyone from a place like that would turn to dust if they were to live in a place like Brisbane. Manage to slow your heart rate down. Take some deep breaths and send another voice message if you can. Tell me what you do and what you're about. So yeah, again, I'm just kind of like teasing her for being Kiwi. Just like, you know, anyone who lives in a place like Brisbane would turn to dust, right? Just, yeah, random shit that I kind of think of, right? It's like Kiwis are known for living in like this cold fucking place and being like super pale and like, you know, not used to the sun. So, you know, it's just kind of like an abstract creative thing I think of. And then again, it's playing off of that frame. And this is something that I do a lot in conversations. It's just like I have like one little sort of frame between me and the girl that I keep kind of playing off in different ways. So like I said, this conversation has very much a theme of like her being a little bit more like nervous and shy and me kind of making fun of her and stuff like that. And me being like, yeah, the more confident one. So that's great frame to have with a girl, okay? Makes perfect sense. And then, yeah, I challenge her to send another voice message. And every time you're getting a girl to send a voice message, you're actually getting compliance, right? Which is another good thing about sending voice memos is it's more investment on their end when they actually send a voice memo, okay? Obviously a dude that they've sent these voice messages to, when they've kind of made themselves vulnerable, right? They've put themselves in a position where, you know, they could get massively rejected. It's going to make them feel more invested in you when they do that. So it's very powerful in that regard as well. And then she's like, haha, nah mate, I'm not listening to my blocked up voice anymore, and you shouldn't have to either. Where do you live, by the way? It says your age is away, but I don't have my settings above like 20 kilometers. And then I'm like, I live in the CBD. What about you? Chilling in a chicken farm somewhere, right? So again, it's just like, that's kind of like one of my go-tos. Whenever a girl's like far away, I just kind of like joke about her living on a chicken farm somewhere in like the middle of nowhere, right? Which is, yeah, always works pretty well. And then she's like, ha ha ha, why does it say 90 kilometers away then? I haven't seen any chicken farms in, can't say the name, lol. But it turns out she actually lives close to the city. Maybe she just went on a day trip or some shit. So I don't know what that's about. And then I'm like, who knows? Hope my marker isn't set to Frankston or something. I prefer my women with more teeth than children. So again, that's kind of like just a funny little joke. It's like I hear these things and then I think like, how can I, you know, what can I do with that? And that's another canned sort of joke that I have. Then she's like, haha, what a savage. I don't know if you're implying they have heaps of kids or missing teeth or both. Then I'm like, both, more teeth than children. It's all about the ratio. I like a bit of dark humor. Think you can keep up. So I'm just challenging her again, getting her to qualify. You get the point. So yeah, this is the rest of the conversation. Pretty typical shit, right? You maybe stop the video, have a look through it if you want. Alright, cool. I'm gonna quickly go over another one. So yeah, this one is just like, again, she's just like, hey, and then I'm like, I bet you use that pickup line on every guy, which is like my go-to for Bumble. Then she's like, ha ha ha, is that meant to be a pickup line? So she tries to like steal my frame, essentially, right? Because I'm framing her as being like, you know, disingenuous and using lines and all this sort of shit. And then she's trying to flip that back on me and trying to infer that I'm doing that, right? And then I'm like, I just call it out. I'm like, wow, flips it back on me. I see your games. So like we're both just, it's the same fucking frame, but we're just both stealing it off of each other and throwing it back on each other. And then I'm like, send me a voice memo. I dare you, TikTok queen. So I saw that in her bio. So I'm kind of just like teasing her for being like a TikTok queen because she says she's into TikTok. And then she's like, no games at all. Haha, why a voice memo? Sometimes girls will ask you like, why send a voice memo, so on and so forth. Oh, and sometimes I try to get them to send me a voice memo before I send one, right? Just to challenge them. But yeah, so I'm just like prime way to find out whether or not you hate someone before you commit to a date. So that's usually my go-to when they ask, right? It's pretty polarizing. I like it. Ha ha ha. Is that so? Go on then, send me a voice memo and I'll reply to that. You know, I could have pushed it. I could have been like, oh no, you first, or like say please or some shit, but like, nah, I just fucking sent a voice memo. I think the recording on this one is really shit, just a heads up. I think I fucked it up when I was like recording it. I don't know what happened.
Wow. Too chicken shit to go first. I get it. What nationality are you? If I had to guess, I'd say Middle Eastern. You got nice like hazel eyes and you're wearing a Gucci belt. It's very woke.
So again, it's just like basic shit, like, wow, like, what nationality are you? Like, again, what you say doesn't matter nearly as much as the tonality and the energy and so on and so forth. So then she just gives me a whole bunch of answers and shit. It's pretty typical, just like answering the questions. One way to tell just by a girl's voice, how invested and how like into you she is by how high pitch her voice is. So if her voice is more high pitch and it sounds like she's trying to be more feminine, then she probably likes you more, right? If she's sounding like her voice is deeper, she's sounding more like a man, right? It's like less likely that she's attracted. Obviously there's exceptions, but you know, that can be something to look at. This girl's voice, she sounded quite like high pitched and sort of feminine and like slightly nervous, that kind of thing, which are good signs. So then I'm just like,
it's okay, you don't need to explain yourself. So what do you do for fun when you're not on TikTok or doing nursing or whatever?
so yeah, I think she said like, I think I said something like, yeah, too chicken shit to go first. So I kind of made fun of her for that. So I think she explained herself like in a voice memo. I'm not too chicken shit, blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm just kind of like teasing her for that. Just be like, don't explain yourself, right? Which kind of frames her as like the one who's chasing, so on and so forth. So that can be like a good thing to go with. And then, yeah, it's just like another typical question. Like, what do you do when you're not nursing or TikTok or whatever the fuck, right? You know, again, it's like what you actually ask and what you say. It doesn't matter nearly as much as the tonality. So yeah, so then she just answers the fucking question. She's like, oh, I like shopping. I like blah, 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 you know, right? But again, her voice sounds like quite feminine, high pitched. So that's a good sign. And then I send my voice memo, which is a bit longer.
You just explained yourself, explaining yourself. For fun, well, I do work a lot. I run a business full time. When I'm not doing that, I try to carve out some time to work on music. I was very passionate about that once upon a time, but I don't have as much time to do it nowadays. Yeah, I gym a little bit. It's not like gym is life, but it's pretty good. Hang out with friends. Yeah. What do you do at the gym? Just like Pilates and yoga, or you like, you know, squats all day long?
I think, yeah, I was just like pretty much, again, I'm like, you explained yourself, explaining yourself, right? Just kind of like continuing on with that frame. And then, yeah, the rest of it is just me answering that. Yeah, just like how I would really. But yeah, like you want to talk about the things that you're passionate about, like, you know, things that are attractive about your lifestyle. You know, when they ask like, what do you do for fun, so on and so forth, you know, you want to put those things forward. So yeah, that's what I do there. Again, the tonality, like you get the vibe. It's like I'm just relaxed. It's like I'm not putting in too much effort, right? I'm not trying to be like super enthusiastic and and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, I'm just relaxed, speaking from my diaphragm and yeah, just like sort of expressing sexuality through my tonality. Because that's the most important thing. Like, you don't want to talk to a girl like she's your fucking friend. You don't want it to be like some platonic chat, okay? You want to make it very fucking clear that you're a man with a dick, and that you're a sexual fucking being, right? And yeah, speaking with a downward inflection, being playful, and having that like sensuality in how you're talking, really gets that across, even if you're talking about shit that isn't even remotely sexual. So that's important, right? Alright, so that's the rest of the conversation. You can have a look through that. I'm not going to break it down because it's mostly about voice memos. But yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about voice memos, okay? Just downward inflection. Yeah, speak from your diaphragm, be playful. Yeah, tease her, right? Don't forget to make fun of her, okay? Anyway, join the Facebook group. Any questions, put them in the comments. Press like and subscribe. And see you in the next video.